Hello and welcome to the second lecture for Unit 7. This one is over the fourth principle of the Constitution that we will be talking about, and that is federalism. The framers of the Constitution wanted the states and the national government to be partners in governing, so that means basically each of those groups having a say in how things run. And they didn't want either side to have more power than the other. So they turned to federalism to do this. We've talked about federalism a lot, and you kind of should have an idea of what the definition is, but federalism is a system of government in which power is divided between a central government and smaller political units like states. In the United States, the power is divided on three levels, and you have the national, the state, and the local. So the national government would be like Washington, D.C., the president, Congress. The state level would be Jefferson City, like the governor. And then the local would be like the mayor of Washington or the city council of something like that. Each of these groups has power over the people at the same time. So, you are in Washington, so you have to follow local laws. You also are in Missouri, so you have to follow state laws. You are also in the United States, so you have to follow national laws. So you have to follow all three at the same time. You don't get to pick and choose, or certain ones don't apply when you're here or whatever. No, all of them, you have to follow all levels of government at the same time. Americans must obey all levels of government. And if two levels of government are in conflict with each other, the higher level is followed. For example, in recent elections, states like Colorado and Washington have legalized the use of marijuana, and they've done that at a state level. So, as far as state law goes, the people of those states have legalized the use of marijuana, but on a national level, it is still a federal law that marijuana is not legal, that it is illegal to use and have and grow and all that kind of stuff. So theoretically, the federal government could go into those states and arrest people for using it, even though it is legal in their state. And that is because the state law says one thing, but the federal law says the other, and the federal law is followed. Now, the reason that they aren't getting arrested is because the federal government doesn't really have the time or the money to waste on going out there and arresting people that passed a law in the state fair and square, and it's what the majority of people in the state who voted wanted. So the national government isn't going to go waste their resources on that. But they could if they wanted to, because the federal law is higher. The states and the national government each have powers that are exclusive to them, but they also share certain powers. This is a Venn diagram of, you have on one side you have all the federal powers that are listed, on the other you have state powers that are listed, and then the things that they can do in the middle. The things that the federal government can do that are over here are things that the states can't do, and the things that the states can do are the things that the federal government can't do. And the stuff in the middle is what everybody can do. The federal government powers, these are powers that are exclusive to the national government. They can regulate trade and commerce between the states. They can coin and print money. They can conduct foreign relations with other nations, and they can establish post office. These are things that affect a lot of people, like the whole country. For example, they can conduct foreign relations with other nations. The reason that this is a federal power and not a state power is that, Missouri could form a relationship, an alliance with England, and Illinois could form their relationship or alliance with Spain. And then if Spain and England get into a war with each other, then Missouri and Illinois are dragged into it, and it's a big mess. Now, that's why we don't do it like that. We form alliances on a national level, not like a state level, like, one state allies with another country and another state allies with another country. We do this as the United States. The national government can raise and support the armed forces. They can declare war and make peace. That's another one that's, you don't really want states declaring war or declaring peace, because if Arizona decides that they want to declare war on Russia, everybody else around them is kind of like, well, we don't want to do that. And they're like, well, too bad, we're doing it anyway. So that puts the other states at danger, even though Arizona is the only one that's kind of doing anything to declare war or anything like that. They can govern American territories and emit new states. They can pass naturalization laws and regulate immigration. That means that they can decide how you become a citizen of the United States. And they can make all laws necessary and proper to carry out the power. That is what's known as the elastic clause. And what that means is that all of the powers that they have, if they feel that they need to make a law in order to better carry out their powers, for example, raising and supporting the armed forces, if they felt that it was necessary in order to do a better job of that, if they felt it was necessary that every soldier had a puppy, they could pass a law that said, every soldier has to have a puppy if they're in the army. And, obviously that's not very necessary or proper, but you get the idea. If they felt that it was, they could. The state governments, these are powers that are exclusive to the state. They can regulate trade within the states, establish local governments, conduct elections, determine qualifications of voters. So these are all things that are kind of on a smaller scale. None of these are quite on the scale of declaring war or conducting foreign relations. They can establish and support local schools. They can incorporate business firms. They can license professional workers. And the last one is the kind of like the 10th Amendment. So if you might want to write that, this is the 10th Amendment, not a 16, it's a 10. It's the fact that they can keep all reserved powers not granted to the federal government nor prohibited to the states. So that means if it's not given to the national government in the Constitution, it's not written down and says the national government can do this, or it's not written down and says the states can't do this, then it's a state power. For example, in the Constitution it doesn't say anything about driver's license, the age of driving. So Missouri could make their driving limit 4 months old if they wanted to, or 84 years old. It's all up to them. And another thing that's not included in the Constitution would be speed limits. That's why when you go from one state to the next, they can kind of change. Like on the interstate, it's 70 miles an hour here, usually on the interstate, but in Illinois it's 65. And, that's up to that's kind of just up to the state, because it's not written down in the Constitution. These are the shared powers or concurrent powers. These are powers that both sides share. They both can collect taxes, and they both do, and that's why when you see a receipt, sometimes you'll have federal tax, state tax, local tax. They both can borrow money. They can establish courts. They can enforce and punish lawbreakers. That's why you have the local police, you have the state police, you have the FBI, and then they also can provide for the health and welfare of the people. So these are all things that both of them can do. So you look at federalism, you can kind of see how the idea is that power is going to be shifted and shared amongst the groups, and the federal government gets this power, the states get these powers, and they also both can do everything. So yeah, that's federalism.